a.m. son. All right. Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2. Well, hello, folks, and welcome to We the Peeps. This is the American Soccer Podcast, in which you're going to get to know everything that you need to know, and all of a sudden, maybe even actually want to know about this B team USMNT. I'm Clayton, and I'm an artist.
I'm Ty. I'm an entrepreneur.
And we just love the Nats.
Any letter. I'll take
Any
the
letter.
I'll take the E team, baby. Get on in here.
I want all the Nats. Insert here. And insert. Folks, the game was USA versus Jamaica. It is the Gold Cup.
Jamaica.
It is a Jamaica. It is the Gold Cup. It was a quarterfinal, a quarter of one final. And my friends, the show hath arrived. The shit just got real, and it got real in a way that worked out pretty okay for us. We are through. It's a 1-0 victory, and it's time to talk about it and make wild conjectures about why this happened and what's going to happen next. Ty, you down?
Always
down. But first, please, housekeeping. Remember, you can always find us on Twitter at WTP Pod. That's a really sort of important spot for us, because if we're doing anything else, you will also hear about it on the Twitter. So hit up the Twitter. That's where you're going to find out when we go live on YouTube during each of these games. We had a bunch of people with us today chatting it up, and it's super fun. It's something that we are really enjoying doing, and we want you to do it with us. So follow us on the Twitter so that you can receive the link to the YouTube. Also, hit us up on Patreon. This show is not free to produce.
Tis not.
I was recording into my microphone backwards, so I'm sorry for the reduced quality of the beginning of this episode.
Minutes.
We're moving forward. That's what housekeeping is all about. Hit us up on Patreon. We need a little assistance to keep this thing going. And if you can spare it, if it works for you, if it makes sense in your life, $5 a month will make you a ratified peep. Ratify your peep status forever and ever, or for as long as you want to continue the subscription. And that really helps us keep this whole thing going. Yeah. And for those of you who have decided to do that, thank you so much. I believe that is all we have for housekeeping. End of housekeeping. Oh, Ty. How many baseball gloves are there in the universe? There's no way to begin this conversation about USA versus Jamaica, the victory, 1-0. That was this epic new installment in the budding rivalry, the history.
Oh, yeah. I love this one.
USA versus Jamaica. The only way to get it going is by giving all of the baseball gloves to Matt Turner, our number one fan, our designated fan. More on that later. Matt Turner getting the goal. In the back, we're going to have Sam Vines.
Damn signs.
Slam Rhymes. Leanne Rhymes. We're going to have Miles Robinson, James Sands, Jimmy Sando, and Shaq Moore. Let's go. Guys, this lineup, as I get into it, was really encouraging. Even before the starting whistle, I was starting to get into this game, and my heart was aflutter when I saw Vines, when I saw Shaq Moore, when I saw Busio. We got to see Leggett Acosta Busio get the start. It's your boy. Hey, this neighborhood really changed forever ever since Busio moved in. And up front, we've got Matthew Happiness is the Truth.
Indeed.
Dare I DK? And Paulie Areola Nips. Oh my God. Guys, what a lineup. It doesn't get any better than this from this roster. This game would start out Not that good, friends. The first 20 seconds, the U.S. Managed to make like 7 mistakes and really almost took us out of this straight from the jump. If it wasn't for a crazy ass Matt Turner save, and there was some debate about this. We go back.
We watched the tape.
We rewatched the tape. This is some crazy ass Matt Turner shit. And you're going to see the other save that he had where he was fully outstretched, and that save is fine. But this save in the first 20 seconds is what makes Matt Turner unique. It was a terrifying and epic way to start out this game. The U.S. would work their way back into it over the course of the next 15 minutes. I noticed a lot of very physical activity.
Lots of physical activity.
Lots of physical activity, in particular from Luca Busio, which was nice to see. Something we've been missing from him in these first 15 minutes. And I'd also like to point out from this portion of the game where the U.S. found their way back into it, there was a lot of Matthew Hoppe being mad and awesome. His attitude was just on point coming in here. Had a nice shot in there and just felt like he was carrying the team spiritually for sure. And at times also just literally physically. Quick WTP highlight in the 23rd minute. A Jamaican player gets mad that the stretcher isn't brought out fast enough. It was funny in the moment. Turned out this player did need to be taken out of the game. So not so funny in retrospect. And one more quick WTP highlight before the end of the first half was a Jamaican player on a throw-in starting off the field. So, you could be offsides on a throw and doesn't count. This guy was behind the goal on purpose. You can be
wherever the fuck you want on a throw.
Incredible. Loved it. Went into halftime. No notes. Beautiful. Went into halftime 0-0. Chances on both sides, not a lot in this. Slightly more U.S. possession, I suppose. But it was a tighty. It was a tighty. So let's come back in second half. No changes. A lot of what I'm dubbing Hopinho in this. Scissors. There was scissors. There was a no look. And then we got some subs. We got to see Roldan and Giassi Zardes come in for DK and Areola, which gives us finally. It gives us a little pause. All of a sudden, we're starting to talk about what is the scenario with extra time. Is there extra time? There is extra time, right? Or is this going to go straight to pens? It's 0-0 for a long time. 72nd minute, Hopinho goes down for a potential pen. No one went back and talked about this ever. Somehow seemed to never come up.
No, didn't come up.
I feel like
he had a couple. There
could have been more to talk about there.
If he was a better player, or a more well-known player, they would have been. Zardes promptly ripped one from 30 yards out upon entering the field, which was on frame, by the way, and force a nice little save. This game would go into the 80th minute getting increasingly scrappy. The nails were being bitten. And we would see, amidst the scrappiness, shout out to Kellen Acosta for showing some prominent defense, good, solid, noticeable defense from Kellen Acosta, would get a shot from distance and would ultimately, a bunch of 50-50s like that would lead to a beautiful goal from Matthew Hoppe. This was Shaq Moore, who would dish it out to the right side to Christian Roldan, throws in a curler, a nice little curler, which seems destined for either the keeper or Giassi Zardes, the traffic cone, somehow phases through both of them and onto the gracious forehead of Matthew Hopinho. Beautiful WTP highlight of the night. Matt Turner celebrating alone, which we likened to this potential concept of electing one fan in the midst of COVID to represent our fandom. And Matt Turner looked like our socially distanced solo fan. Yeah, so. No fans is very COVID safe, but one fan cannot give themselves COVID. So just get them out there.
So we say, let's have one fan in the
just
stands,
go for one.
Just losing their mind over everything that's going on.
And there has to be a separate Zoom competition to see who gets to be the fan at the women's field hockey.
in Tokyo.
This game recap is going way off the rails because we're in the weeds on this idea.
Oh,
but
man.
But anyways, it's a goal from Matt Turner.
It's not from Matt Turner.
It's a goal from Matt Turner. It's a goal from Matthew Hoppe. Which Matt scored? It's a goal from Matthew Hoppe. Matt Turner solo fan celebration. The last 10 minutes of this was to see it out, and it was scrappy and it was rough. Andre Blake came up for a corner. There was blood involved. Reggie Cannon flew into the advertising boards, but we did it. The whistle blew 5 minutes after 91-0. Ty, we're going to the semifinals. What's your first impression?
Throughout the tournament, we have been talking about the next generation, the new crop of challengers from within CONCACAF, as we've seen our region strengthen itself over the last decade or 2 decades, particularly in line with the rise of MLS. And we expected going into this tournament that we would see a strong Canada team, as we have. And we've seen a game between the US and Canada. But that game paled in comparison in intensity and in entertainment to the game that we saw here. And obviously the stakes are very different. The Canada game was not a knockout game. This was. But at the time, we had anticipated and kind of hoped that the Canada rivalry would give a little bit more juice to that encounter. But what we saw from this Jamaica game was exactly the kind of stuff that we were hoping for. It felt scattered, it felt stretched, and it felt like a true tournament knockout game. So for me, this was the beginning of a new era in the US-Jamaica history, where it will be a proper soccer rivalry. And both teams can say they didn't necessarily have their very best personnel, at least not firing on all cylinders for this tournament. So I expect this rivalry to just keep getting better and better. And it might not be Canada that becomes that, new number 3 team in CONCACAF, maybe being able to displace a Costa Rica. Maybe it'll be Jamaica.
I think they both got a shout. This was a real game. My heart is in this. This whole tournament, from the roster announcement until the end of the final whistle versus Canada, has felt like a little bit of a wet toast experience, I would say, relative to some of my more fervent
hard toast
experiences relative to my firm toast experiences with the Nations League final, for instance. This has been it's felt a little slow.
It's tough to compare.
Got slow.
This gave me this gave us enough signs that there are matches like that on the horizon in these next 2.
That's right. And part of that was exactly what you're talking about, Ty, is this budding rivalry, the relationship between these teams, the rising tide, the inevitable rising tide that lifts all ships in the CONCACAF region is having its effect. And these games across the board are becoming more and more interesting to watch. It feels like every day.
Totally. Yeah.
It is also because we saw the personnel that we want to see on the field, Ty. We saw players that all we've been asking for is give these guys a chance to show whether or not they can be a part of this team going forward, the A team going forward. And so that means we need to see certain names in real high-pressure situations. Names like Luca Busio, Matthew Hoppe, Daryl DK, what's his face? Shaq Moore, Jimmy Sando, Robinson, almost everyone.
Jimmy Sando from
the neighborhood. It's your boy. Everyone except for Sebastian Lletget and Kellen Acosta and Paulie Areola Nips, right?
Right. Yeah,
this entire starting lineup is unproven except for 3 players and legitimately interesting and exciting.
Yes.
And I think we got to see a little bit of evidence in both directions for a lot of these players. Ty, what did you see in terms of who's coming on up?
Yeah. So to your point, the goal of this tournament, based on the roster selection, is to try players out for World Cup qualifying. If the goal was to win the Gold Cup, we would have brought better players. So you have to assume that this is the intention here. To that intention, we did a really good job today. The right players got the substantial minutes and got to be put in those spots that we were hoping to see them. I think one that really stands out to me is Miles Robinson. where throughout the course of this tournament, he's been just such a rock in the back line. I feel like he's a shoo-in to be a part of a future senior team squads. I don't think there's anything to choose between him and the Aaron Long, Walker Zimmerman tier of national team center backs. And then one that we were hoping to see, throughout the course of this tournament, be a leader for the team, Luca Busio, did pretty well. He didn't have too many high profile moments, but he was a good cog in a mostly functional US midfield.
I want to jump in on the Busio thing.
Yeah.
What we saw from him today, the thing that we have been missing. So we may not have seen all of the things that we know Busio can do. Line splitting passing in particular is the Busio thing, and just an excellent first touch, a slickness. But what we saw from him today was the ability to keep up in a legitimately competitive and physical, scrappy situation. Yeah. The boy's 19 years old. He probably weighs 115 pounds. Okay. And he kept up throughout this.
Yep.
It's beautiful. And so that gave me so much. In terms of my Busio, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
the player who most knocked their tryout out of the park.
Who's that? Ty?
Was, of course, Matthew Hoppe. Not just for the goal, but I thought the goal was reflective of his general approach, mindset, attitude, and his actions throughout the game. So you saw him even in the first 10 minutes, G'ing up the team, he was super fired up himself. He was treating this like it was a serious game. And that's part of what made it feel that way. It's part of what energized the team to really come to play today. So Hoppe deserved the goal. He was dangerous throughout. He was the player that Jamaica least wanted to see on the ball running at them. And I think he's going to do that a lot in his US and professional career. So I just, my Hoppe stock just keeps getting higher and higher. Hoppe to the moon right now.
Hoppe to the moon. This guy, and it's like I was reminded of Dempsey in his performance today. There is a Dempsey-ishness to this kid.
And we've officially nicknamed him Hopinho. And I think he is the most Brazilian national team player we've seen in ages, maybe since Mr. Dempsey.
He did a no look from the back.
He's barely looking at all.
He's barely looking at anything.
It's an exception when he's looking.
But it's the look on his face that made me think of Dempsey. It's not even the way he's playing. It's the feeling.
I hope,
it's the feeling.
I believe and hope that there was lots of communication going on between him and other players during the game, because he was just on one, and so I feel like that can, if maybe that's not prominent right now, but that can develop into a very prominent skill over time.
Ty, tell the people. Sorry, go ahead.
If he is able to play the way he acts, he's going to be fantastic. He's going to and that's part of, it's a reinforcing thing, because the better he plays, the more what he says will matter. Right now it's only on a team like this that what he says can matter. On the A team, I don't think he's going to be able to pull that. So he's got to show that he can ball a little bit more. But as he does that, he's going to get more and more respect with his teammates, and that will, make a cycle where he's able to continue both sides of his game, both the attitude and the skill.
The attitude is an interesting thing, because it's one of those things that you can't teach, and you don't need to develop. You have it or you don't have it. And he's got it, right? So now
is that true, you think?
You cannot
teach it?
You cannot teach a human being to react that way in a high pressure situation. In situations they've never seen before. The story that you told me about Matthew Hoppe earlier today, I'm going to ask you to repeat. So you told me that he got in on a Twitter thread about the future of the number 9.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what happened? Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is pre his
hat trick. This is pre-Hoppy. Hoppiness is the truth.
So I remember the timeline a little bit incorrectly. I found the original thread. It is pre-hat trick because I think the hat trick was in like February. This was in December of 2020. So that last winter. So he's a Schalke player, but hasn't done much yet. And your boy Church of Pulisic on Twitter, shouts to Church of Pulisic, asked which 3 strikers will make the 2022 World Cup roster. People are answering this question. And Matthew Hoppy says, don't count me out.
He slides in.
He slides into the thread himself.
It's incredible. No one had ever heard of this dude.
Yeah, so it was kind of a joke. Right. If you recall, last winter, it was kind of like everybody knew he was playing for Schalke, but like you weren't going to watch Schalke so that you could catch like 10 minutes of this random American teenager who wasn't scoring, And then when he started to get some starts, and then he got the hat trick, and then, he was fully on the radar, and now he's the GOAT US striker. But but at the time, still very, very obscure. And I think most US fans still hadn't even really, known the guy at all.
I had not heard of Matthew Hoppy until the hat trick. And I'm paying attention. I'm trying.
We try.
Yeah, we are out here.
We got spreadsheets.
So that is what I'm talking about, though. That attitude, it is either present or it's not, and it's always present from the jump. Another good example of an attitude thing that is you can't teach and has always been there is Tyler Adams being a captain/coach. His first game back from injury for RB Leipzig, so this is like, a year into being there or whatever, but he showed up, started, am I remembering this correctly? Yeah, he showed up, started, injured, came back on, and was captaining, like doing captainy things, telling players where to go, pointing, big upping players, encouraging, all this kind of stuff on his first game back in RB Leipzig back from injury. That is an unproven, unsort of justified way to be. It's right. Just the way he is.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
It's just the way he is. Yeah. So then the hope becomes, can we get this person's, body to do the things that we need for them to be that person on our A team, right? And that was the question. It was obvious at that time that Tyler Adams was very important to the future of the national team. That was already clear. But I think what we're seeing with Matthew Hoppy is an opportunity. It's can he be? Because if we can get this guy on the bus, we have a live wire on our hands.
Totally. But okay, so here's the thing with Matthew Hoppy. Part of the reason why people hadn't heard of him before, this epic hat trick that he scored, was that he's never really been that good. Even at youth level, he's never really been that good. He hasn't really been involved much in the US program. And I'll just give you his stats. Schalke U19s, 20 games, 5 goals. Second team, 16 games, 1 goal.
What is happening?
So how and for Schalke, for the senior team, 24 games and 6 goals. So he's actually scoring at a higher rate for Schalke than for the Schalke reserve teams and youth teams.
What's the deal?
I think there is a personality that does this.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to find precedent, and I only can really think of the US players knowing that depth of the stats. But I would love to go back maybe into some of the great goal scorers of history. Let's see. Has there been a world-class level striker who didn't totally dominate youth level?
This has come up on the show before, and so far my best guesses are converted strikers. So Thierry Henry.
Right. Well, and that maybe that's a little bit of the case here as well, because maybe they saw all that sauce and they were like, oh, go play right wing or something. So we can dig in more on the stats.
Yeah.
But even statistically so far in his career, he hasn't been that incredible. But it's really that when you watch him, you see the talent.
Yes.
And you see what it can become, like you said, like you see the potential for the future.
And perspective and attitude are so important in sport.
It's so important in your development as a person.
As a person, like when you see someone who has that edge, you know, it's worth investing in, even if they're not yet showing the skills or the results that you're looking for.
And it's also potentially infectious.
Yeah,
you know, that can rub off on, like, if Hoppy comes in and he says, like, what the fuck are we doing, guys? Like this, we're a top 10 nation in the world right now. We got to play like that.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe he says we're the best.
Yeah, we're the greatest in the world.
We're the best soccer team in the world. That would not be a bad thing for this group.
We need that. Could you? I mean, could you imagine if Christian Roldan starts this game? How different the tone is.
Absolutely.
Hoppy, prior to scoring the goal, Hoppy kept us in this.
Right.
Just with his G status swag.
Right. Now, we have to be careful to be clear that Jamaica let the U.S. team off the hook a number of different times. There were a number of different De Korver Reed chances of various levels of quality. One from about 6 yards out where he hit the ball like he squibbed it straight to Matthew Turner. Turner also came up with some great saves. There was the chance we noted in the first minute, which was offside in the end, but he did come up with this crazy shoulder save thing.
It's fucking nuts, dude. I love it. I love it.
And another one that was a little more standard, but just like a really nice stretched reflex save out to his left from a long shot. So I think probably, I haven't seen the stats, but I would guess Jamaica won the XG battle.
That's an interesting
question. Had a lot more clean looks than the U.S. did, and Matthew Turner.
I'm gonna go on record.
I think they let us off the hook as well.
I think you're right. I'm gonna go on record and say I think the XG was probably pretty similar. There were a lot of I don't know. It's tough because Jamaica's chances were coming from transition, so they felt a lot more dangerous than the U.S. chances, which were sort of. They were more worked. They were more felt like they had to be worked. They had to massage their way into these situations, the U.S. did, whereas the Jamaican chances felt very open. It was like 2-on-3s, you know. I'm not sure how the XG, like maybe the U.S. had more shots on goal, but Jamaica had more XG because of their positioning. I don't know, but it felt like there were equal chances. I agree with you, however, that Jamaica did let us off the hook, even in the goal that we did score. Ultimately, this was a preventable. It could have been better defended, and in the chances that they missed, there were a few that they could have put away.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you might criticize Andre Blake a little bit it seemed like he kind of misjudged it.
Yeah,
went a little over his
he played
glove, or maybe he didn't know where Hoppy was. He played
I wonder
it for Zardes.
I wonder if he was playing it for Zardes.
Yeah.
Which is a classic Zardes thing to do. To just be near a situation and somehow help it out.
Exactly. He gets credit for the goal, I think, right?
Yeah, he gets the assist, right?
He gets the assist on that. And credit where credit is due. So when Roldan and Zardes came into the game, at that point, the U.S. had not, to that point in the game, had a stretch where it felt like the team was in control, particularly in the midfield, particularly just building out of the back. And there was a marked difference in the way that the team looked and how the shape looked after those two came in.
So what happened there? So DK and Areola doing it?
Areola had a tough time finding the game. It didn't seem like he got a lot of touches. Maybe there's some hesitancy or some maybe some slowness, right, from the injury. DK had some problems which are becoming very familiar, where he's just lost unless, like, he requires the rest of the team to really function well in order for him to be involved in the game. So that's a quality I think we could live with in the A team. I think it would be less of a problem in the A team. But in this particular team, it just didn't work as well. Not that Zardes does that many other things, but Zardes is just more willing, I guess. He's clumsy, but he will end up in midfield and do something clumsy in midfield. Whereas
He
it seems
covers
like
more
Daryl DK
ground.
just never makes that choice.
Yeah, Zardes covers a lot more ground than DK. That's the one thing that you can never take away from Zardes. The man runs his ass off. He's
a trier.
He's a trier, and he's not a slow person. He is faster than Daryl DK.
Yes.
So the question is, will DK's goal scoring ability, which he has that, and he had in this game one, maybe two classic DK chances that are like, how did he get a shot off in that situation?
Yeah, he's a 90 plus.
If he's putting
those aspects,
if he's putting those goals away, he's the guy.
Right.
But if he doesn't score, he's not providing anything else. Now, the problem is we have all these guys that can provide stuff other than goals, and Zardes is one of them. So we really hope the best for Daryl DK's development. However, Christian Roldan and Giassi Zardes coming into this game helped a lot. Just with the shape.
It seemed to stabilize the play.
It did. And I wonder how much of that is Christian Roldan, who, we shit on this guy. He's been around too long. It's one of those things where I'm never going to see him differently than the way I see him. But he is playing a lot better than this is a better Christian Roldan than the Christian Roldan who wormed his way into our hearts as a problem.
Well, and the thing
remember, here's what, and just let me put this in perspective. Christian Roldan and Will Trapp were the weirdsies of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Christian Roldan Will Trapp remained at Will Trapp level. Christian Roldan is not that bad. He's not as bad.
Yeah. Yes.
So there's
you can give credit to Greg for moving on from Will Trapp, but like he didn't just keep both of them. And then he's letting Ewell go now, it seems.
Yep.
He's giving up on Ewell, which is the correct decision. So I'll give him that. Okay, Greg. You get to pick one of the three.
And he made the best pick. And Busio went 90 in this game. How easy would it have been for him to put Ewell in for Busio?
Yep. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Easy.
Now, so the thing with the Roldan thing is that now Greg is playing him as a right winger.
Yeah.
Which I believe is much more of a thing for Seattle, but we hadn't seen for the US previously. So that, it's hard to say what specific deficiencies it lessens for Roldan because there are a lot of deficiencies. But I guess he's in a similar boat where he will try very hard. He will shuttle up and down that flank. He will have an occasional moment of combining nicely, and he put in the ball for the goal. That was a good solid chip. And I don't know, maybe it puts him in a lot less of a position to be a liability than when he was trying to kind of run the midfield.
I think that's true. I think that he is, the Scuffed guys put it nicely, that he's a great asset to any team until you get to a certain level, and then he's a zero. Once he's out of his depth, he's just fully out of his depth.
He doesn't go from like an 8 to a 7. He goes from an 8 to a 0.
Right. And so versus Mexico, the concept there is that he's a 0.
Totally.
So that's one way to look at it. I'm open to him being, a little more, there being more to it than that. That maybe the stability we're seeing is not because of a difference between Zardes and DK, but because of a difference between Areola and Christian Roldan.
Sure, I mean, particularly in this
he's
game,
a glue guy. He's a link-up guy.
He's a link-up guy. The other thing to keep in mind, I think it's good and it's the right thing to do to give these guys credit for performing well in this game. They can only play the team that's in front of them, all that stuff. But you do have to remember that, Kellen Acosta, for instance, pardon me. Kellen Acosta had a good game overall today. Showed some frailties that I complained about a lot on the live stream. But in general, contributed well to to the win. But when we saw him in that game against Northern Ireland a couple windows ago, where it's just like a team that's just like a little bit better than Jamaica, not a ton, but better. And they were at home. They just torched him. It was like, yeah, like you said, it's immediately like he's just not even close. He can't even compete. So I would not want Kellyn Acosta to be in a key World Cup qualifier or let alone a key World Cup game. So it doesn't matter too much to me for the future if he's getting better at playing against teams like this. Though I guess, to be fair, there will be plenty of games in qualifying that are like this. So that's not an invaluable type of player for us to have, but
it's valuable.
I just think we should not start to think like, oh wow, he's getting to the level of
I don't think that.
The starters,
we're talking about Roldan. I don't think that at all.
I was talking about Acosta, but
okay.
There's this.
Either of them, both.
Yeah,
they are both not at the level.
You can't get carried away. You can't. We should give a lot of credit for good performances and for stepping up in this tournament and contributing to a so far successful run in the tournament. But I don't know if it really, for those two in particular, gives me a lot of hope about the future. Whereas for guys like Roldan, Miles Robinson, what I am seeing specifically on an eye test basis is giving me a lot more hope for the future about
Busio and Miles Robinson. Like. You said you
sorry, I meant to say
write it as the
Hoppy and Robinson.
Sure, yeah. And I would add Busio in there. I think if Busio's can in a few games raise the level of his physicality as much as we've watched him do.
Right.
Just by being put in this situation.
Right. Okay, Chris, so let me give you a little test here. Okay. So I'm gonna go for the Nations League roster. I'm pulling it up.
So this is the A-team roster.
Yeah, A-team roster.
And we're saying as of today, who's gonna nose their way into this thing?
Exactly. And I forgot Kellyn Acosta started that game. And he coughed up the ball for the opener, Mexico opener. So is Kellyn Acosta going to replace himself? So the starters were in the midfield, McKennie, Acosta, and then it was the five back with Dest, Ream, Brooks, McKenzie, Yedlin, and then Gio, Sargent, Pulisic. So nobody on this roster gets anywhere close to the 11, except for that Acosta slot. I would say.
I think.
Well, McKenzie,
Hoppy for Sargent.
Robinson for McKenzie, or Ream. Yeah. Robinson for Ream.
Robinson for Ream, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Hoppy for Sargent is a shout.
Hoppy for Sargent is definitely a thing. Yeah, I think Hoppy's not as good of a 9.
Yeah. It's been.
I today would go for DK over Sargent. And Sibachu.
With this other team.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And then Hoppy is the super sub for Pulisic or Reyna, whoever's having the worst game.
The problem there is that Brendan Aronson is way doper.
Brendan Aronson is way doper. I forgot. Yeah, I guess let me quickly shoot you through the bench.
Let's talk about the bench.
Matt Miazga,
who, by the way, if you keep up with Chelsea on YouTube, Matt Miazga is in training with Chelsea.
Is he really?
Yes.
He has said explicitly his plan is to leave, but maybe that was a gambit to make them give him some time.
He was in the YouTube video with Pulisic in the first team.
All right. I mean,
he's not featured. I was like, was that Matt Miazga?
Yeah.
But he's in there. He's fucking in there.
I remain confident that he would make it at a team like that, but he's just never gotten the chance. But everywhere he's gone, with the exception of where there's been like weird personal or like team circumstances, he's done well.
Yeah. All right.
He's a contributor. Anyway, Matt Miazga's on the chopping block at the moment in the depth chart. Anthony Robinson, maybe bubbly. Jackson Ewell off the boat. Sibachu certainly.
So Busio
right up there with everybody else.
Busio for Ewell immediately.
First Busio for Ewell. Yeah, Leggett is on both teams. Musa is definitely above
Musa
midfielders.
Yeah, Musa is a hypothetical.
David Ochoa is going right now. Matt Turner
Oh yeah,
Come
hell
on,
yeah,
man.
Matt Turner for Ochoa, absolutely. Because if God forbid we are in a situation where we actually need our third keeper,
I love this guy.
this guy's
I
great,
love it. I have so much
fantastic.
confidence in him.
Yeah,
So,
he can stop shots.
or
That's
he,
what
do you
goalies
remember?
do.
Do you remember at
Isn't there kind of a similar situation with the goalies as the strikers? Like we want these goalies that can like dribble and do pass and shit, or we want strikers that can dribble and pass and like link up and all this bullshit. Matt Turner's like, I stop shots.
That's
Like
my main
I'm a goalie
thing.
and I
That's my
stop
thing.
shots.
Yeah, exactly.
With my
So,
hands.
do you remember in the I think it was the Brazil World Cup, there was the Netherlands Costa Rica game, I believe it was, where the Netherlands brought on Tim Krul. I think he was the third choice
penalties.
goalkeeper just for the shootout.
I do remember this. Yeah, that was epic.
I would love that. I think Zach Steffen's great at saving penalties too, so it's not necessarily.
And actually, Ochoa could grow into that role as well, pretty well. But anyways, and
I want Matt Turner to come in just for some random obscure thing, just to defend one free kick late in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. I mean, you got to say, like, I've now talked myself out of it a little bit because your third keeper, you want Ochoa to get experience if he can. This kind of is Matt Turner.
I want Matt Turner to get the experience. I love David Ochoa too. I think he will be the next number one. I think he has a better shot at being the number one
but that's why you use the third slot on him. Yeah. Whereas this is Matt Turner's moment,
We can
but depending on the schedules of and Ederson's health,
right.
Matt Turner might get a couple qualies.
Right. Then we've got Reggie Cannon, who's on both rosters, and Tim Weah. So, so today we're bringing Hops, Busio, Robinson. We're finding room for those three, for sure.
I'm definitely for Hoppiness is the truth and Busio. Robinson, there's a lot of center backs who, could be doing really well. I don't.
You're not sold based on what we've seen yet.
Now, I'm sold that he should be in the conversation. He wasn't in the conversation.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good. So that I feel like this tournament has already been a success because we've gotten so much information about the players who we were hoping to see that I think we could pretty confidently say, what modifications you would make to a World Cup qualifying roster based on that. Now, Miles Robinson needs a test. And you know who has some sick ass strikers?
Who these people? Cutter. So Ty, you told us to keep an eye on these guys.
I did.
So we've defeated Jamaica. We're moving on. You told us keep an eye on this Cutter team. These guys are no slouches. And here we are meeting them in the semifinal of this Gold Cup. Why should we take this seriously? Because they good. Look at their highlights. They only score worldies, these guys.
Bangers only. So Qatar is a very unique team on the world stage because the country has so much money that they can afford to keep their best players in the country playing in the Qatari League. Which means that they have players who are good enough to be playing in good teams in Europe. And it's not that they've been judged to not be able, it's that they're getting money thrown at them to continue to play in Qatar. So they're an unknown quality on the international stage because we haven't seen a lot of data on how their players actually compare to players from other regions. But the data that we have seen in this tournament so far has been a unreserved yes, that these guys are really, really sick. And what makes them especially interesting is that they're very front loaded. So I don't have a deep scouting report, I hate to say, on the Qatari 23. But if you just watch their highlights, it's evident that these strikers are ridiculous. Namely, they have this dude, Akram Afif, with the hair.
Yeah.
He's kind of like he's a shifty, tricky winger who cuts inside and scores worldies. Lots of curlers.
He's awesome. He's
and
awesome,
Almos Ali, who is the sort of poacher, more poachery type forward. And so these guys have been banging away goal after goal in this Gold Cup, and the Qatari roster is very heavily weighted towards attack. So their best players are attacking players, and that has led to some of these like wild score lines. Like they had the 3-3 with Panama, and they just won their quarter against El Salvador 3-2. So clearly they're going to ship some goals. So it's going to be a shootout, and it'll come down to whether we can outstrike them. And so it's a perfect opportunity to see Robinson face a lot of pressure, and to see if our I think it'll probably be DK again, but some combination of these attacking players that have been finding some success, if they will be able to outshoot the Qataris.
We'll find out. We'll find out when.
Thursday night, 7:00. Thank God, as we record this recap at 12:50 in the morning.
Yeah. This is it.
I'm grateful for that, and I'm pumped. I think it's going to be a great game. I think win or lose, as I said, tournament's been a success, and I just look forward to seeing our young players get some intense experience against a high-level opponent.
Sick. Thank you once again to everyone who joined us during the game and during our recording just now. As soon as we wrap up, we'll go over any questions that you guys have put in the chat. And I've been putting those at the end of the episode. If you're listening to this on iTunes in like 3 days, my guy, you could have been awake at 1 a.m. on Sunday having this conversation with us. Okay. We're
Anytime,
psyched.
baby. We're here.
We're in. This it's a real thing now. This tournament's real. It's happening. Let's go play Qatar, which, by the way, is a very. This is a special opportunity. This is the type of game that you only see in the World Cup. It's teams that you'll never play again from a different region
in a competitive
match.
That is
everyone cares about
for this group.
It's great experience for this group, and I tell you what, it's a great experience for us as fans because it's fucking awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is very World Cup-y.
Yeah, this is great. It's happening. It's all happening, guys. I love the concept of a floating island in the sky. I'm obsessed with it. It's shown up in a number of different pieces of media that I like, and I think there probably is something true there. If it's in our collective consciousness in the way it is, perhaps there are floating islands somewhere in someone's sky. I enjoy 1 a.m.
Someone's sky.
Someone's sky. I enjoy almonds. I attempted to feed Ty some almonds through my computer camera, and it didn't work. But I will try again next time. And lastly, I really like birthdays. Happy birthday, Ty Fujimura. Happy 33rd, my G.
It was a happy birthday.
Happiness is the truth. Happy birthday to you, Ty. But I don't love any of that shit, honestly, dude. Sorry,
honestly,
bro.
Yeah, even my birthday. Wow.
As much as I love the Nats. Let's go,
Same.
boys.
Let's go, boys.
Same here.